afternoon. We're continuing to work with those percentages. Today we are doing PO23. This is a power objective. It's using what we've been working on and learning, and now we're getting into the important nitty-gritty stuff based off of what we have been doing. So PO23 is I can find a percent of a whole number. So time for some real life application using percentages. Perhaps you've seen or heard some variations of these. She took 20 shots and made 30% of them. So we hear percentages when we do sports. So sometimes people, sports announcers will talk about percentages. So how many shots did she make? If she made 30% of those 20 shots. The test was worth 30 points and she got a 90%. How many did she get correct? Or the bill at the restaurant was about $40 and I left a 15% tip. How much was the tip? We're going to figure out how to answer these questions. Matthew? No, because we're going to learn how to find these answers. That's the important thing. This was just telling us questions that come up in everyday life. We're going to learn how to answer those questions. So, we're going to use fractions, percentages, and multiplication, 3 different methods to answer those 3 questions. So what I write on the board, what do you have to do? Write it in your book, each method. So we know how to use each method. We're not just saying, well, this is how you get the answer. No, we're learning these methods. Because you might learn a method that you didn't know that works even better than the way you had figured out how to do it. So everybody is learning every method. So what I write on the board, I expect you to write on your paper. Let's look at our shot question. She took 20 shots and made 30% of them. How many shots did she make? So she made 30%. What does 30% equal? What fraction? 30 over 100. So we know that she made 30 over 100 of her shots. How many shots total were there? No. 20 shots. She made 30%, 30 over 100. She made 30% of her shot. There were 20 shots in total. We want to know how many she made. So we're going to put a variable there. I used an N. You could use X. You could use Q. Doesn't matter which variable you use. So if N over 20 equals 30 over 100, how do I solve this? Oh, we've seen this before. Damien.
You do N times 20 and then you do 30.
Yeah. If we're dividing by 20 and we want to get N by itself, we're going to multiply each side by 20. So this will cancel out. We can multiply across and then divide by 100, or we can cross simplify. So 30 times 20 would be 600 over 100. Simplify it down, and how many shots did she make? Lauren? 6. 6 divided by 1 is 6. She made 6 shots. James?
I figured out the answer, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And what did I say we're doing, James? We're learning 3 methods for each of these questions so we can understand each of the methods. I know sometimes we can figure things out in different ways, and that's okay. But we're learning these methods today. Henry?
I found another one that will work some of the time. So it can also equal 3 tens, and you can multiply that by 2, so your times becomes 20. So you multiply the bottom by the top, 30% equals also equals 3 tens.
Correct. You could have simplified it there. All right, now working with percentages. So, when we work with percentages, we're gonna look at 10% of our 20 total. What is 10% of the 20 total baskets? Kaylin,
It would be, wait, are you asking like
what's 10% of 20?
2?
2. Okay, so if we know 10% is 2, how many percent did they make? She made 30%, so we have to times by 3 to get up to that 30% that she made. So if I multiply my percentage by 3, what do I need to multiply this by? 3. So if we break it down to a percent, that 10%, we break it down, then we have to multiply it up and multiply both sides up. We're going to do this with the other two, so it'll make a little bit more sense the more we do it. Now let's look at the multiplication. Made 20. She took 20 shots. And she made 30%. 30% would be that 30 over 100, right? So she took 20 shots, and she made that 30%, 30 over 100. So it looks very similar to what we did over here. 20 times 30 is 600, divided by 100, and we get that 6. Damien.
So I already knew how to do this. My mom taught me when we were tipping our waiter. With the multiplication.
Yeah, so the bill at the restaurant was $40, now up to 15% tip. Love that parents are teaching us that modern world. We gotta know how to tip. Lucas.
Yeah. My dad said, okay, the bills.
So you've been practicing the tipping
And when I
also?
did percentage, all I did was
Okay.
what's 10%?
Yeah. Well, because you chose your tipping percentage, the easy percentage. Okay, let's look at our test example. The test was worth 30 points, and she got a 90%. So the test is 30 points, and she got 90%. So what is 90%? What is that fraction? Christian? 90 over 100, 90 hundredths. So we have, how many questions were there total? 30. 30 questions. We want to know how many questions she got right. So that's our unknown. That's our variable. How many questions she got right. And that's going to equal the 90%, 90 over 100. So just like up here, we want to do that opposite operation to get n by itself. If we're dividing by 30, we want to multiply by 30. So our 30s cancel out. 90 times 30, 2,700, divided by 100. How many questions did she get right? 27. There's different ways to simplify. No matter which way you simplify it, you get 27 questions correct. Olivia.
At when you start to get to the middle part of the fractions one,
Mhm.
I feel it's pretty much just the multiplication one, just with more steps.
Yes. Kaylin?
Yeah, I like the multiplication one because sometimes it's for the fraction it's gonna be the complete opposite. So we're 20 on top of the variable, and we gotta do a little different.
Yeah.
And you have to not.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the percentages. We know that there's 90% correct, so we want to break it down to that 10% of the 30 questions equals what? 10% of the 30 questions would be what, Adeza? 3. So we're not at 10%, we're at 90%. How do I need to go from 10% up to 90%? Madden? We're multiplying by 9. So if I multiply the percentage by 9, I need to multiply the other side of our equal sign. I want to balance it out. If I multiply one side by 9, I need to multiply the other side by 9. 3 times 9. So 90% of 30 equals 27. And then we have our multiplication. We have our 30 points times 90%. So it's just back to that multiplication. So we've got 2,700 divided by that 100, and we get our 27 points. So it's all knowing how we set it up. Work on the bottom. What would the tip look like? Work on what the fractions would look like, what the percentages would look like, and what the multiplication would look like. How should we set it up? Do you have a question? We're going to give our friends another minute. So if we're at home watching this, we're working out all 3 of the ways on our own. Are we okay if I erase the top so I can scroll up?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to come show us on the board how to do the fractions? Damien, so you can bring your binder up. Do it step by step, and I'm going to narrate what you're doing. Is that too high? Okay. Yep, we had 15% tip we wanted to leave. 15% is 15 over 100. So we want to know how much is that percent going to be? What money out of the $40? What should that percent be? So n over 40 equals that 15 over 100. Because we want it to be a 15% tip. And we multiply both sides by that 40 to get n by itself. So we got 15 times 40. We get 600 over 100. So we are left with leaving a $6 tip. Do you have a question, Kaylin?
So I
What did you put N over?
15.
Oh,
So,
you swapped the money and the percentage. Okay, who would like to show us how to do the percentage for the tip problem? Lucas, come on up. Bring your binder if you need to. Okay.
So you have 10
Yeah, we want to break it down to 10% of
equals 4 and 5% would equal 2. So
fearful.
you would get
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Did you?
Okay, so he did it slightly different than what I was showing us because he wanted to get up to that 15%. So let me walk you through the way I would do it with what I was showing you, and then I'll explain how Lucas's way works. Different, but still works, because math is a beautiful thing. We can get at things in different ways. Go ahead and have a seat. For me, I would have said 10% of, 40 equals 4. And then I know that I want to get to 15%. So to go from 10% to 15%, I'm going to add 5%. So I'm going to add so that 5% is half, right? So that gave me the 15%. So I'm adding half. So half of 4 is 2. And that's how I got the $6.
I did something different.
So let me show you how Lucas did it. Lucas said, okay, 10% of 10% of 40. So he had 10% of 40 equals 4. And he said, you know what? I know I want to multiply up, and I need to get to 15%. I can break that 10% down to 5%. So 5% is half of 10%. So 5% of 40 is 2. And then I'm going to multiply by that 3%, multiply by 3. So I get 15% of 40 equals 6. Henry, what way did you do?
Could I show it on the board?
Walk me through it, just
Okay,
tell me.
so I did 10% of 40 equals 4.
Yep.
And then I knew 10% had to get to 15, so I multiplied it by 1.5. 1.5 gets me to 15. And then half.
By 1.5?
Yeah, 1.5.
Okay.
Half. 0.5 equals half, which will get you to 15. You have to do the same with 4 times 1.5. I'll get you 6.
So same problem, still using the same concept, putting a little different twist on it, right? We're doing the same kind of math, we're just making it work with our number sense with what we know. Did you have a question, or do you have a different one?
I was just gonna ask how you, on the Lucas's way, I was gonna ask how you got the 3%. But
We multiplied it by 3 because we wanted to get to 15%. So 5% times 3 gets us 15%.
so we just wanna get.
Yes. So here we got to 15%. Here we got to 15%. Here we got to 15% because we wanted to leave a 15% tip. So there were different ways to get to that 15% tip using the number sense that you are comfortable with. The way Mr. Schultz had it in the answer key was adding 5%. The way Lucas did it was dividing down so he could multiply up to 15. The way Henry did it was, oh, I know 10 times this gets me to 15. Okay. So everybody's coming at it a different way, but we're still coming up with the same 15%. Addie.
Also, can you use a calculator on this, like for the times and like if you're doing the timesing method and you want to try to times the big numbers, can you just, or like,
I'll look it up, okay? I don't have the test memorized, it's been a year since I gave it, so I'll have to look that one up. Let's look at our last way. Using multiplication. Lakely. Yep, you can bring the binder up. So you don't have anything written. You should have at least 2 of the ways filled in and be working on that third way. So Lakely knew we wanted 40 times that 15%, that 15 over 100. So 40 times 15 gave us 600 and 100. So we simplify 600 100s and we get that $6 tip. All of the ways that we figured out the tip gave us the same answer. Any questions on those? Okay, on the bottom, we need to find 60% of 40. Do we have to use a specific way? You're going to look at the 3 methods and say, pick which method works for you. Still talking. Different methods work easier for different people. Find the one that you are comfortable with and use it. So it does say show your work. Should I just see an answer because we used a calculator? Nope. Put the work down on the paper of what problem you're doing. Okay. If we want to use the calculator, I'm going to say right now, if we want to use the calculator to know what 40 times 15 is, you can use the calculator for that. But you have to show me the work that you are doing. Okay? You have to show the work. You don't have to show me 40 times 15 and show me how to multiply it up. You don't have to do that, but you do have to show me the work that we have been showing. Oops. Lucas.
Can I show work now?
No. Wait, what?
On the, how I did
Well,
it there?
that's showing your work.
Okay.
Did I say that only one way worked? No, I said any of those got us the same answer. So show your work. Madden.
can the percentages of something end in decimals? Or is it gonna be a whole number?
There might be a 0.5 here and there.
Yeah, there
Oh, my. Second page. Let's look at the directions on our second page. Again, finding the values. Then we have word problems. Figure out what you're doing with the word problems to find those percentages. It's the same math, friends. But make sure you're answering the question. And if it says explain, you should be writing out your explanation. Because blah, 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 blah. It's okay if it's not a full, complete sentence. It's not English class, but you do need to explain. Then we need to estimate, rounding the percent to the nearest 10. So if we're at 21%, what am I going to round that percentage to? 20%. Round it to the nearest percent and then do the math. Very bottom, write a percentage statement that equals the given value. For example, if the given value is 15, you might write 30% of 50. So you have to write an equation that would work, okay, to get 30. How would we use that? So figure out a percentage statement that would give 30 as the answer. That would give 45 as an answer. 30% of 50 gives us 15. So figure out what percentage of what number gives us 30. I see your hand up and I'm not responding right now because I'm in the middle of a lesson. So patience is a beautiful thing. Okay, so on the bottom, make sure that your percentage statement is a percent of a number gives you this as the answer. Okay? Any questions on that? All right, if you are watching this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.